Below the surface of Poland's Lake Lednica, a diver touches an old sword without realizing what it means. When the archaeologist gets the old weapon back, they find out that they are probably the first person in hundreds of years to touch it. Their find will be very important as scholars try to figure out what happened in a medieval settlement. In years gone by Poland's lake, researchers found a sword buried under the water of a lake for 1,000 years. Lednica was a significant part of the country's history. Historians have known for a while that the area is connected to the country's first ruling dynasty and the start of Polish Christianity. But in the summer of 2020, the waters revealed a new collection of ancient treasures. The divers were from the Nicholas Copernicus. It's funny. The school is named after an astronomer and mathematician who became famous in Europe during the Renaissance. But for almost 40 years, historians at the university have been interested in the hidden world under the waters of Lake Lednica. Teams from Nicholas Copernicus University have helped find many interesting things. After 2 days of religious rituals, there is a walk under the moonlight under a huge metal fish sculpture. The building of the piscine is a sign of Christianity. It shows up at Lednica because Duke Mieczysław I is said to have been baptized on an island in the lake when Poland became a Christian country in the 10th century. His family was the PS dynasty, which was Poland's first royal family. The prince was the country's first real king or queen. His power set off the PS's royal rule, which held until King Casimir I the Great died in 1370. Miles I led Poland to grow, taking Galicia from Bohemia in the south and Pomerania in the north. Poland's evangelism began when Mieszko I became a Christian. Poznan got a bishop seat, which sealed Ostrołędniki's fate because the island in Lake Lednica was now strategically placed between Poznan and Gniezno, which became the state's first capital. This made it a major military and economic hub in medieval Poland. The island had a church, a chapel, and a royal palace. It is thought that people from the PS dynasty lived there in a fortified Slavonic village. In the 1950s, the first studies were done there. About 10 years later, the museum of the first PS dynasty opened nearby to keep the historical items that were found there safe. The area around Ostrołędnik is now one of Poland's official national historical monuments. It was one of the first places to get this honor in September 1994. It is the biggest open-air museum in the country and home to the museum of the first PS dynasty. Even though Ostrołędnik is now a tourist draw, the island and lake it sits on are still important archaeological sites. This is why the team from Nicholas Copernicus University and the museum did the dives, and the results were made public in August 2020. From 1982 to now, the first PS dynasty has been looking into Lake Lednica, but the charges that came out in the summer of 2020 were said to be the biggest in over 10 years because they went back to the time of Tescoi, which was in the 10th century. The area of Lake Lednica that was studied this time was near 2 bridges that connect the shore to Ostrołędnik and another island called Lednicka. The first bridge was built in the early 1100s, using wood that was cut down between 913 and 914. 2017 was the year these buildings were found. That bridge crossing might be the oldest in Poland. The fact that it existed showed how important the Ostrołędnik settlement was during the first pests. Because of this, it looks like the island fort was very important during the Escoi's reign. In any case, the bridges, which were several hundred feet long and focused on Ostrołędnik, were a big find. In their time, they were amazing works of building, but digging around the structures turned up just as many old things. Nick Pyden, head of underwater archaeology at Nicholas Copernicus University, told an English-language Polish website in August 2020 about the first news about the things his team had found in Lake Lednica. Pyden said that this season is likely the best in 12 years, both in terms of the number of items and their value and scarcity. The sword was found in amazing shape, with the pieces of a leather sheath and a cross pattern that was unique for the time it was made. Pyden told First News that the most amazing thing his team found was during their most recent underwater travels. The eighth sword and spearhead axes, including the encrusted axe, were found this study season. They are the first ones to be found in 20 years. Along with the blade, detectives found 21 other items, such as 2 axes, one of which was Scandinavian and covered in silver, crossbow bolts, arrowheads, and a sickle from the 13th and 14th centuries were also found in the lake. This suggests that Niki, which was ruled by Austria, was a major defense site during the first PS dynasty. The finds are based on several fights that happened on the bridge that linked the island to the shore. This is more proof that the place was significant in Polish history. According to a trial growth study, the tree at the Lake Lednica fortifications was cut down in the year 980. This shows that the defenses date back to the time of Mieszko I, Poland's first known king, Pajdin, who brought the first news to this area. We are becoming more and more sure that the towns around Australis were important not only for Michelangelo's eyes, but also for his father or grandpa. It's a big deal that Niki May, who was led by Austria, existed before Marco I legend, says that the PS dynasty began in the second half of the 9th century, but not much is known about its history. This means that Mieszko I was probably the 4th prince from the PS line. The story goes that when Prince Popular of Nezin, who is now known as Nizno, died, his plowman PS son Sinuit took over as prince. From these simple roots came a powerful family that ruled Poland for hundreds of years. Tests may also give clues about the group's health and looks, but it took years to get all 30 samples. Professor Marek Figuerois, a biochemist at the Polish Academy of Sciences Institute of Bioorganic Chemistry, started the experiment in 2013. He later told the Polish press agency, "At the start of our research, we had a list with about 500 pounds burials located all over Poland and even beyond. However, it turned out that they couldn't get samples from the 500 pounds burials they had originally identified because, as Figueroa explained, most of the tombs had been destroyed." Don't forget to like and follow if you like the video.